Good morning, Daniel. We are live 6 seconds into the session. How are you doing?
Good morning, Mirko. I'm doing great. How about you?
Not too bad. Finally, it's cooled down a little bit here south of Munich. We had it pretty hot, but now the rain and thunder, and so I think we're down to 15 degrees Celsius, a lot more livable than before, but not nearly as hot as in Southern Europe. I mean, you've seen the fires, I'm sure, in Greece,
Yes.
Spain, Italy. Pretty damning.
Yes, it's a bit scary to look at this. Yeah, it's good to have a bit of a cool down, and yeah, China. There's also a lot of news these days, right, Mirko?
Yeah, it's been unfortunately a little bit. We promise we will do better and don't leave our audience for such a long time and without any news from us. It's been a month. We've been busy with other things, but as you said, there's so much going on that now we really have to go live and talk a little bit about what's happening with China's foreign minister. I've prepared a few slides here, Daniel. We're just going to chat and look at a few of those things that I've prepared. Basically, what we're looking at is all we can see now about Mr. Qin Gang on the homepage of the foreign ministry. So I think he got kicked out yesterday, didn't he?
Oh yeah, that's right. Like, I mean, this was a complete, crazy thing that he disappeared for a month, and there was absolutely no news and all these wild rumors. And then there was this emergency meeting yesterday of the standing committee where they finally announced that he's removed, but it's just one sentence, right? And what you have here is amazing because it's like he didn't exist in the foreign ministry, right? They removed every reference of his name on this webpage, I believe. Huh?
Yeah, when you search for him now, nothing is coming up anymore. And you look at all the activities of the ministry, the foreign ministry, they only talk about the Fubudang, like the vice ministers, but the minister himself is basically being erased from memory. And it's been a month. I think the bishop was the first guy to really notice that he kind of isn't showing up anymore. And then sort of certain appointments were canceled with other foreign dignitaries, and so people started to wonder. And now it's been a full month, and he's been removed. Interestingly, though, he still shows up as a state councillor. So that's kind of interesting, don't you think?
Yeah, it is, right. But I mean, from my point of view, this is really. This whole process, of course, doesn't feel so good because, of course, it's very normal in China that politicians get investigated and removed, right, over the last 10 years, the whole anti-corruption drive. But this is completely intransparent, right? So no reasons being given, nothing communicated. So I think this really hurts the confidence, right, in the system a little bit. That now it seems this doesn't follow a process, but just one person is more or less making a call here on what's going on. Yeah, and I think the interpretation, also some of the other analysts, why he remains there is that it's likely there's an investigation against him ongoing, but hasn't come to a conclusion yet, right? So, and probably I think the foreign ministry, of course, is a top focus, so they can't afford to keep him there. The pressure was so high now. He was removed and replaced by his predecessor. But probably on this place, as long as the investigation is not concluded, they kept him there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of more like standard procedure that they remove them first. They've done something similar. I was reading with Borsila, even though those were party positions where he was removed first, and then only 4 or 5 weeks later it became sort of public knowledge that he was investigated, and people are sort of wondering what it really was. I mean, I think we both like to watch Wang Zhan, and it's quite clear also from his perspective that you almost can sort of exclude bribery, corruption as a reason. Also, this sort of extramarital affair that became a rumor, I think that's not going to hold either. And so really, in the end, it's something serious in terms of party political discipline, you know, and people rumors it might be.
Yeah. We're probably never gonna know, I guess, right? So I mean, there was no any reason given, and probably there will be some kind of reason given. I would guess it's gonna be around some graft story or some health reason, but I don't think it's going to be the real reason. And it's so sensitive, right? Because he was handpicked by Xi Jinping and promoted, make the jump in his promotion above 2 levels ahead of many other people who would have been promoted before. So I think they're going to watch this and handle this in a way so it doesn't fall back in a negative way on him. But of course, on the other hand, this also shows no matter how close you are to the big leader, I mean, even you're not protected if you don't follow the discipline, right?
Yeah, no, it's terrible. I mean, frankly, from a foreigner's perspective, and like for other countries and their leadership, you know, you meet with this person, you think you're meeting the representative. There are sort of conversations, discussions, maybe even negotiations where possibly meaningful progress had been made, and this has all been for nothing, really, right? I mean, if you're Secretary Blinken and you just try to look up anything on the Chinese website about your meeting with Qin Gang, it didn't happen, right? I mean, that's not really sort of a big confidence builder that like the people you meet today in China, they'll still be around next month, and it's all just a big black box. And when you see, we quickly showed this picture here during these pressers with the foreign ministry. There's Wang Wenbin and here in this case Mao Ning. I mean, they've been sort of tortured by foreign media representatives here, having to tackle and address questions on the whereabouts of Mr. Qin Gang, and they just, it's clear they're really agitated. They really hate being sort of exposed to this, but you know, they don't know what to say. I mean, they themselves just don't have any clue what's really going on, or maybe they do, but they also know at the same time they just can't talk about it.
Yeah. No, it feels really awkward. I mean, in the past, of course, there were many cases where the people just say, I can't comment on this or whatever. But to have this very strange feeling, yeah, I mean, it gives me the feeling that this whole thing has become very arbitrary, not following a logic or process, yeah, and just determined by one person. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you know, I mean, but it's not all bad, Daniel, because as you know, Einar Tangen here, one of the experts, says China's foreign policy depends on policies, not personalities. Of course, this is laughable and not worth really sort of commenting on, because it really is all about the personalities, about the opposite numbers, as the visit by Kissinger shows very clearly, right? That these things are about old friends, right? It's about friendship, it's about relationships you build, and this hasn't really helped China sort of build trust and make itself sort of like a standard for foreign policy. I
mean, you could rephrase this, right? Like, because the Chinese foreign policy is the one determined by Xi Jinping, right? He gave out his foreign policy guided on diplomacy and so on. So you could say it depends just on his policy, right? On his personality, right? Not on the people below necessarily.
Yeah, sure. That would be an interpretation where this comment here could make sense, but it's as frightening because it just goes to show how much this one man rules it all now. And yeah, I think this is where we are. It's going to be interesting to watch this space, see what really happens to him now. Hopefully he is alive and is well, and then we'll see the next step, because also, as you mentioned, I mean, Wang Yi took over his old job, but now he's got 2 jobs, right? And so this has to be sort of like a placeholder kind of setup, and until they find a younger replacement, because for sure he can't do sort of 2 jobs at the same time.
Yeah. And look at it, I mean, never before, probably in the last 30, 40 years, was this such a big black box, right? I mean, all these rumors, there were 4 or 5 candidates on who's going to be the successor. So it was all wrong. No one had the Wang Yi in there. So that shows there is one guy calling the shots, and it's just within his brain. So no one is able to guess or to predict this.
Yeah, so it's another reminder that in that respect, China is just really going backwards. I mean, it's back to the days of Mao Zedong and that type of ruling and showing who's calling the shots, and nobody's safe. Right, and so here we are. But that's an interesting topic. I think we also want to cover quickly something on the Chinese economy. We've seen all the numbers. We don't have to repeat them here. It's all quite clear. I think what everybody is really wondering and watching out for is the reaction of the government, of the party, to like what to do really about China's economy. Because as you can see from these slides, these are just a few sort of representative slides. There are many more showcasing how poorly the recovery is actually happening, and everybody's waiting for the big sort of bazooka stimulus. And it's quite clear by now, and we'll talk about this in a moment, that this big stimulus is not going to come. Right, and so we had a number of policy movements in the last couple of days, and the first one we had was really this document from the Central Committee and the State Council, called the 31 Measures, came out on Monday, 14th of July, and it's a special document. Not sure you saw the episode that Wang Zhan did on this. Just came out like I think 1 or 2 days ago. Watched it while I was on my Peloton, and really enjoyed it. What I wasn't aware of is that there have been only 2 other documents like this before, and they were all pre-Xi Jinping. In other words, this is the first time under Xi Jinping where such a policy document addressing the private economy has been issued, right? And so this is quite telling.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, fact is like that over the last 5 years, most of the private entrepreneurs I grow, they lost, I know in China, they lost a lot of confidence, right? And you see that, of course, the biggest private internet companies, they half their market cap basically because they got put on a chain. And so now, the government is realizing that the economy is driven still to a large part by private entrepreneurs, and they lost confidence. So we are in a difficult situation, right? Because after this first quarter, which still looked, there might be some recovery. Now the second quarter was very clear. It doesn't happen, and it looks quite gloomy now for the third quarter. Yeah, and I mean, we've all seen these gloomy forecasts for China before, but this time it really doesn't look too good, right? I mean, for my 20 years, I can think back, this is probably the most serious outlook economically. Yeah? And now everyone is trying to reach back the hand towards the private entrepreneurs and stimulate them. And like you said, this big stimulus, I think they can't do that anymore. Yeah? Just triggering investment I mean, all these infrastructure projects and so on, I don't think this can work anymore. But it's very hard to get the full confidence of the private entrepreneurs back, right? I mean, there's too much uncertainty there, and I think a lot of this trust has been destroyed. It's not so easy to get this back.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the second document really was the one from the Politburo that just happened on Monday, and they convened their session earlier than usual. It's usually in the end of July. This one was earlier this time around, but it had, I think, to do with scheduling reasons for Xi Jinping. But the same ideas, the same message, really, sort of to encourage the private entrepreneurs to invest more, to do more. And really also to tell the cadres on the local level to help them and sort of take down barriers, especially as it regards sort of the state-owned enterprises. But the same sense can be felt throughout the document, which is them desperately trying to regain the trust of China's sort of private entrepreneurial class, which, as you just said, is just going to be very, very difficult, as the last 3 years have been massively damaging in terms of the sort of the confidence in the party and the government, how to really run the private sector of China.
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend from Singapore last night, right? And I mean, every wealthy private entrepreneur or their family office, they have over the last 1 or 2 years tried to move over to Singapore, establish a base there, right? So this is a sign of the confidence, of the waning confidence right now.
Yeah, and I mean, again, just to be sort of complete, also same day, Monday, the NDRC came out with their document, was like a notice in how to sort of encourage more investment by private entities, but mostly looking at what Wang Zhan said in his video, right? He had this funny Chinese style movie on Mao Zedong and his pals back in the day, and it's really just a conversation with them about, you know, how they really hate the capitalists, but realizing that they're just so much better in running an economy, and they themselves just Bibushan. Yeah, they just can't compare to these guys. And so the conclusion really is, you know, we just can't get rid of these guys yet. We still need them. And if you look through the documents, it's the same kind of sentiment, really, that, you know, the relationship got massively damaged. And if you look through the entire sort of rectification campaign with regard to the technology and internet platform companies in China, the crackdown on the tutoring businesses, on the Ant Group, and especially also Alibaba, that's now really splitting up into 6 units. I mean, it really was almost like they want to go back to the days where the state-owned enterprises are the #1 pillar of the economy, to which Wang Zhan said, you know, you have to understand the 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 rule. And I haven't really memorized it yet, but it's really, all those numbers are percentage numbers of what the private economy really does for China. And it's a massive factor. And just to sort of temper with that, the way they did in the last 3 years, and now thinking they can come back and say a few nice words and have Pony Ma repeated in an article that he actually didn't really likely write himself, it's just almost laughable, right? And the Chinese entrepreneurs can't be fooled so easily. So I just really wonder how they want to sort of turn that ship around. I feel, from what I'm hearing in my conversations with local entrepreneurs in China, they're on the sidelines. People on the sidelines, as well as the consumer, right?
Yeah, you're right. I think let's hope that we get this entrepreneurial spirit back, right? And it's all about confidence for entrepreneurs, right? And I mean, for me, this has always been the true secret of these 40 years of economic miracle in China, has been the entrepreneurial spirit. Maybe one bright point can be my major area of activity on the electric vehicle side. And there's also now the central government seems to try to heavily promote this, because here we can see there's an upside, right, for Chinese electric vehicles now going out to the world, and especially to Europe. This is really getting momentum.
Yeah, and frankly, I mean, I've been talking to a few friends who work for certain areas in Germany and their investments, and the likes of BYD and SAIC are scouting for sites to build factories and really trying to sort of, you know, get a foothold in the European market and come here and invest. And I think this is really a space that's going to be super interesting to watch. I mean, it's really your field, Daniel, but that's going to be massively interesting, but also relevant for the wealth of the German society.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think sometime soon we're going to talk about this again, maybe in a dedicated session. But what do you think, Mirko? We close it for today?
That was a very good session. Thank you for your time, Daniel. And anyone here in the audience watching, please leave us comments and ask questions, and we will address them in our next session. Bye, Daniel.
Thank you. Bye-bye.